Hey everybody, Jeff Tidwell here with another one of my tweet videos for you today. It is Saturday, June 27th, 2020, and we are going back to the past, going back to 2019 to look at some tweets. As always, I can be found on Twitter at RealJeffTidwell. I'm also on Gab, Minds, Parler, Telegram, and Instagram. If you're not watching this video on YouTube, you're watching it on BitChute. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the content, and if you do, please do hit like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below with your thoughts and observations, accolades, criticisms, intellectual dialogue, non-intellectual dialogue, trolling. I take it all. I love it all. And of course, there's also the little bell below for notifications. And if you find my cadence to be a little on the slow side, you can hit the 2x speed button and get all of the information in half of the time. Time is the currency, of course, and that is double bang for your buck. So without further ado, I'd like to get started with today's tweet video. Welcome, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. So we're going to start off with a pair of tweets on the same general topic of publicity, starting with this one here. This might nerf my chances, but here's the deal. Anytime I make a tweet that's either satire or could be taken a number of ways, which is often, there's a glimmer of hope in my mind that someone will complain about it in a BuzzFeed article or a Medium piece. Don't stop believing. So, I actually had an interesting run-in with a journalist, a Forbes contributor by the name of Marina Medvin, who's also, according to her Twitter profile, an award-winning lawyer. And I fooled her with a satire tweet that she retweeted and insulted me with. She's conservative, and I said something, I believe I said something that might have been a little bit anti-conservative or not going along with those values. Of course, you know, I'm independent, and some things I believe are on the right. I'm right-leaning in many ways and left-leaning in others, but Marina didn't take to it too well, so she had a bit of a trigger response to come after me and call me a louse, which is, of course, the singular form of lice. So I'm a louse, she said, and of course she deleted it. But not before I got the screenshots and all that, and I actually put up a tweet, a story in 4 parts with lore, so it'll be chronicled forever. But yeah, you know, if you make a controversial tweet or a statement somewhere, and maybe it's meant to be satire or not taken too seriously, yeah, you might have somebody do a write-up on you. You might even make it into the paper of record, the New York Times. I call it the toilet paper of record, but you know what I'm talking about. And of course, the Washington Post, they might do a write-up and say that you're a provocateur, you're a right-wing extremist, you're a left-wing extremist. They might do something like that. But it's great because it's publicity. It's like, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? You know, you want to have good publicity, but you got to get your name out there. Half of persuasion is getting people's attention. And if people are writing articles about your mundane satire tweets, well, I think you're probably doing a pretty good job. So, it's not bad. It's not bad. Maybe BuzzFeed will do an article on it, and you'll be in trending for something you said that wasn't meant to be taken seriously. Doesn't matter. It's free publicity for you. So, that leads into our next tweet. But I say here, of course, even though this tweet here might nerf my chances, I always think, don't stop believing. Don't stop believing. going into another tweet about publicity. This is a named tweet. It's called Good, Bad, I'm the Guy with the Publicity. And it quotes a few movies here and does a couple of interesting things, but I'll get right into it. Give me your mind, your memes, and your media cycle. Love me, hate me, but never stop talking about me. Share me, smear me, shame me, endear me. Thank you in advance. I'm wrong? React! I'm right? React! Don't care? React! So, good, bad, I'm the guy with the publicity. Starting with, give me your mind, your memes, and your media cycle. Of course, referencing Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the 1991 action film that colored a large portion of my youth, having grown up in the 90s. I love that movie. But let's go and break it down. Give me your mind, your memes, and your media cycle. So, what we're seeing, of course, these days, and we've seen for many decades, is the rapid cycling media. Some people say it's a 24-hour news cycle. Some people say it's 2 or 3 days, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks. There are all these different lengths of cycles for different aspects of media. But basically, give me your mind. Give me your mind. Give me your mind. That's what they want. They want to have our minds for commercial purposes, to sell something, to get across a message, to get across an ideology, or perhaps something else. But they wouldn't do, they might be, of course, trying to do something that's altruistic as well. Give me your mind so that I can help you become a better person and buy more product. Buy more product. Your memes, of course. Memes are, memetics are one of the highest forms of communication in some ways because they're so powerful. They give you, it's like advertising an idea, advertising a joke, advertising having a symbol, having an image in front of your face with some words, with a message. And it's very, very simple, but very, very effective. You just need you can fit so many things into a single image that really it will help people to be persuaded over. Or just make them laugh or think. It doesn't really matter what you're trying to do. Memes are a very powerful form of publicity and communication. And of course, the media cycle, like I just said. I have a tweet out, trending typo tricks and the nature of media cycles. Check that out on BitChute and YouTube. The next quote here is, love me, hate me, but never stop talking about me. So as I said earlier, there's no such thing necessarily as bad publicity. Sure, it might be negative tinge. You might not be happy with what people are saying. But as long as people are talking about you, that's how you keep the wheels turning in terms of your career, maybe in entertainment, wherever it might be. You want people to talk about you more and more. And of course, it's going to come down to some people liking you, some people hating you, some people indifferent, neutral, whatever it might be. But if there's a lot of talk about you, you're in the air, you're in the spirit of the moment, you're in the time. People will remember. Remember when we talked a lot about that gal over there, that guy? Remember that person? And some people will be like, yeah, I remember that kinda. Remember Tiger King? There's a lot of people out there that just, you can love them or hate them, but as long as you talk about them, they're winning. They're winning. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. Next one is, share me, smear me, shame me, endear me. Thank you in advance. So, of course, sharing the memes, sharing the tweets, sharing images, videos, even just including a person or a thing, an animal or a place or anything you'd like in a tweet or a meme or a Reddit post, you're going to get, Facebook, share me, share me, share me, share this, share me. That's what I'm trying to say here. You want to be shared. Smear me. Like I said, you can have some bad publicity. Get smeared. Get smeared. You can really have some bad publicity and still come out ahead, because some people will naturally have an inclination to be contrarian, to take the opposite position of the general public, the people that are really enjoying what you are, what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're about. There will be people that are contrarian, that just happen to be into a counterculture, happen to have different tastes, happen to have whatever it is. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You're the guy or the gal with the publicity. Shame me. Well, we have a lot of that out there. We came up with this thing called Karen, how to shame, when people shame somebody. They shame a customer service representative at a store and say, let me speak to your manager in front of everybody. Let me speak to your manager. Let me speak to your manager. Just as an aside, there was a little talk about this earlier about Karen being racist. Now, you can make that judgment for yourself. I personally just think Karen, and I feel bad for all the Karens out there, that it's like the Chads. It's like, this is your moment to shine. This is your fad. This is your fad that you have to deal with. But I never saw Karen as racist or sexist. Maybe a little bit sexist, just because it's bitchy woman. You could draw the line to sexism there. But people were saying it's a white woman, and I'm like, I have lots of people in my life. Men, women, trans, any sexuality, any identity. And if they're being annoying, irritating, if they're kind of nagging on something, I think Karen fits. Karen fits. And again, I feel bad for Karen with all of her shaming. But shame me, and put me out there. Maybe I'll create we'll create a community of people that love the person that's being shamed, because the publicity is there. People will come to your advocacy. They'll come to stand up for you. They will. Endear me. Thank you in advance. Endear me. So there's the good. There's the good. A lot of this has been negative about bad publicity, but maybe you're just endearing. Maybe you're just endearing. Maybe you're charismatic and persuasive, and people can go ahead and share you around. And of course, the next line here, I'm wrong, react. I'm right, react. Don't care, react. Because that's what they want. When people are looking for publicity to get the attention of the public, to get the audience they want, all you got to do is react. If they've compelled you to even say something good, bad, neutral, to interact with it in any way, shape, or form, right there, immediately, you're winning, because they reacted. They saw it and they reacted. So it doesn't matter if it's bad or good. It's a matter of compelling people to act, to be interested enough in what happened with you or your product or your team or whatever it might be that you're pushing or selling, that you want to get publicity for, get as many eyeballs on as possible. You want people to react. Doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, or if they just don't care. If they don't care and they're reacting, clearly they kind of care. So it's It's a win-win. So, onward and upward. It's a beautiful summer day today, a little hot. Just, moving on. So let's go into talking a little bit about whistleblowers and U.S. politics. Back on October 2nd, I said this: I don't expect any U.S. politician, certainly not Trump, to show whistleblowers the respect they deserve in any concrete way. They are seen as enemies of the state, even if their motives are to save the state. Call me cynical, but even someone like Tulsi Gabbard is only giving lip service. This was in response to Cassandra Fairbanks, who had been talking about Chelsea Manning, who helped Julian Assange and WikiLeaks with getting some of their releases to do with the U.S. military. And I believe it was the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Of course, she's saying, why is Chelsea Manning sitting in jail for refusing to testify against Julian Assange? So, this is a difficult topic for me because I have a number of videos out and I've put a ton of tweets out about how I love Julian Assange. I'm a big fan of his. I believe in free speech. I believe that he should be free because he's a publisher, of course. But I see the friction with why he's being treated this way by the U.S. government, because he deals in classified information. And of course, if the U.S. government allows classified information to be, released without any sort of consequences, that's something that they just simply can't do. Like, I totally sympathize with that position by the U.S. government or any government. You release classified information, they see that as a crime. That's difficult because I think that we need more transparency. I think that we need to be able to see what's going on. I think there's a level of transparency that people can't. I think that there's too much transparency in some ways. Like, it's better not to know how the sausage is made for certain citizens at certain times. I admit that. But I liked the way that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and other whistleblowers and leakers and things like that expose the truth. Like, I think that the people deserve to know the truth. But at the same time, I have to look at the government and go, well, if all the classified information were let out, it could be a national security crisis, and that would affect me as an American citizen. So I don't, it's hard for me sometimes with Assange. Like, I'm pretty much hopeless on Assange being released. He's probably going to die in prison. So I don't expect any U.S. politician, certainly not Trump, to show whistleblowers the respect they deserve in any concrete way. They deserve respect because sometimes they're operating for personal reasons or commercial, monetary reasons. They're doing it for them. But I think there is this moral question of how much, if we live in a free country, the United States of America, with a constitution, and we have, this independence, we're independent, but then we have the secrecy and the privacy of government, and that, it's not, by the people, for the people, if the people don't know everything, but is it sort of like better to have cognitive walls or any kind of force to stop people from knowing the truth because it might just demotivate them? Maybe you need a little bit of that psychology, their psychology, to be better, so they continue to work and so they continue to live their lives without fear and anxiety. Sometimes it's better not to know the whole truth and just be blissfully ignorant in some contexts. So I think they deserve some respect, but at the same time, I understand, again, the friction. They're seen as enemies of the state, even if their motives are to help to save the state, which seems like a contradiction. But again, contradictions don't really exist. That's just missing information, and yeah, they're not going through a process. They're leaking things to the public. Usually they're, with WikiLeaks and Assange, they curate things, they make sure they redact what they need to, but, the government doesn't want its private files just being released all willy-nilly. You know what I mean? I totally get it. Call me cynical, but even someone like Tulsi is only giving lip service. And I say that again because, frankly, I don't see a change happening. I don't care if Donald Trump is president, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. I don't care if Mickey Mouse is president. But I don't think you're going to see them letting up on these whistleblowers. So a little bit of a black pill on that, but I urge anybody that's looking to leak information, go ahead and do it. I'm looking forward to receiving the higher truth. And I hope, as long as you're not harming or putting lives in danger, and people were claiming that WikiLeaks was doing that, but they redacted enough. There weren't really any names. Covert operations wasn't compromised with WikiLeaks. If you can do that and kind of illuminate, of course they illuminated with the Democrat Party what they were up to, and I'd love to see WikiLeaks or another organization reveal what's going on with the Republican Party, because we have the election year. It would be very interesting to see an October surprise for either or both of the political teams in the United States. So, on to the next tweet. So continuing on that topic, here's a named tweet. It's called Panopticon Prince. And it's a bit of a poem. I have a few tweets that are a bit more like a song or a poem, and Panopticon Prince is in that wheelhouse. Panopticon Prince. I can see you, but you can't see me. We know where you're going to be. Double-sided mirror, microphone on. This goes for you, your daughters and sons. I know it's a shock. Don't panic, don't wince. Time's up, game over. We have all your prints. We have all your prints. So this is talking a little bit about the surveillance state. Edward Snowden would know a little bit about that. Check him out on Twitter, @Snowden. He was the one that, again, leaked. We were doing leaks on Jeff Tidwell's channel today. But he leaked, of course, the information about the NSA and what they were doing with metadata and phone numbers, and how James Clapper lied, and so on and so forth. James Clapper was the head of national intelligence and oversaw the CIA, the NSA, the FBI. So I can see you, but you can't see me. The double-sided mirror. If you happen to have a smartphone, you're probably maybe watching this on a smartphone, watching me do my hair back like that on your smartphone or computer device. And you can never really be sure, can you? You can never be sure if Apple or Google or any of these, Microsoft, Bill Gates, everybody. Bill Gates, everybody. You never know who could be listening in. They could be watching you masturbate. That would be a pretty scary thought, huh? Yeah. Unless you're pure and you don't do those things. We have some pure viewers at the channel. But they can see us and we can't see them. We don't know if we're being watched. I know human beings have this natural impulse to know if someone's watching them from afar. Like that person out the window there is totally not watching me, but I'm watching them. Maybe they can feel it. I don't know. It's a little paranoid. We get a little paranoid in here. I'm a little paranoid. But it is kind of alarming. And we learned the extent of that when Edward Snowden released the information on what the U.S. government was doing in 2014. We know where you're going to be. So it's GPS related too. There's the GPS. The GPS is in everything. You know, there's a GPS in your phone. There's a GPS in your video game systems now too. You can fact check me in the comments below. You subject matter experts, but I mean, you have GPS devices everywhere. There's always tracking, where you bought this, where you bought that. People essentially always know where we are. You know, the powers that be, they know where we are. And I know we're getting into a little bit of tinfoil hat territory here, so I hope that the conspiracy theory loving viewers of this channel and YouTube and BitChute respectively, well, I hope you're enjoying. You know this is all true. You know it's true. But it's a matter of sort of, like you might wonder, Jeff Tidwell, why are you complaining about the panopticon prince looking through the mirror at you when you're using Google right now? You're putting this video on YouTube. And I'm like, I have made that decision for convenience and for other purposes to give up a bit of my privacy. Because privacy, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I would say at this point, I'm unsure if I'd say it's dead, but it's essentially one of this great commodity. And you have to give up a little bit of your privacy to, be part of society, of course. And a lot of the things we've seen that have streamlined how we do business, commerce, buying things, shopping online. I mean, you're going to lose your privacy unless you decide not to, get yourself involved in any of these things. I know people that don't use, they use secure Wi-Fi only. They don't have a phone they take out. Some people are very careful. They don't have media accounts. They don't have Google. They are very careful, and they keep it closed. Double-sided mirror, microphone on. So did you notice that Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook actually covered up his little camera with tape, and people cover up their microphones and all this stuff? It's good precaution. You never know if Big Brother is watching. This goes for you, your daughters and sons. Yeah. So this is everybody. This is everybody that's experiencing this. This is not just older folks that may be getting these things that are being tracked. It's everybody. Especially if you've had, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyway. There's a chance that if you've had a vaccine or you've had some sort of injection, do your research, of course. Don't take health advice from a YouTuber. But they can certainly, there are tracking devices that can be implanted under the skin that can't be detected by anybody except for those that are placing them. It can't be detected by the person that receives them. They're so small. There are ways for tracking devices to be placed into the skin. We just haven't seen it reported very widely, and I don't think it's it's more of a possibility than something that's actually well reported. I know it's a shock. Don't panic, don't wince. Time's up, game over. We have all your prints. We have all your prints. That's PRINTS. Your fingerprints and everything else. They have your information. They have, the more that we give up of ourselves, the more that we do this biometric thing, the more that we involve ourselves with, I don't want to say the coronavirus. This is kind of sort of leading into this idea that they're talking about the vaccine of coronavirus and how It may be mandatory, like the thing that puts us over the edge for mandatory vaccines, where like you have to get it. And if you have to get it, and you have such things as like nanobots, and again, this is Conspiracy Theory Corner for just one tweet, it's possible that they could really track you permanently. And then you might wonder, like, well, okay, Jeff, we don't have any freedom as it is. Freedom is an illusion. You can't just do what you want. It's not that easy. You are already living within the limitations of society. You're already, you already gave up your privacy. You already gave up your freedom. Why does it matter if people are tracking you anywhere? And I'm like, oh, okay, if you just want to give up, not think about it, do you really want your government to own you? I'm not sure if I can argue that well with that. But they are continuously collecting information on us. And there's different purposes for that. A lot of it has to do with advertising and marketing. They're getting your metadata. They know what to pitch to you at what time. It seems pretty innocent, but then you turn around and you go, well, what else can they do? What is the sky the limit? Like, what else can be done with this information? Your fingerprints and everything else. How far can you be tracked? Like, how have you consented to the whole thing? That's the question. Have we consented to the panopticon prints? If you buy an Alexa device, the Amazon Alexa, if you have Siri, an always listening device, well, you've kind of consented for a fair bit of information retrieval, if you understand. So this was just a tweet that I did right around the time Edward Snowden released his book. And it's nice to put it into a bit of a poem form. Or a song. It's a little bit of a song. So, water. Onward to the next tweet. So I have a couple of tweets here that are all sort of different versions of the same idea. And I'm going to read all three and we'll talk a little bit about them. But they're fairly dense. You'll get the gist. These are three named tweets. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, 3 in 1. So the first one that came out was called Warning Shot. Warning Shot. Anonymous sources familiar with the matter provide testimony that will confirm your suspicion. In closed-door meetings with unknown questions from high-ranking individuals close to the case, I obtain second-hand information that will change everything. Believe me. Believe me. That's your warning shot. The next tweet in this 3-part series is called Weasel World. Weasel World. Anonymous sources usually report that someone familiar with the situation is likely to suggest a probable link they can believe possibly indicates the direction of what could be largely considered to be what some might often call weasel words over a period of time. You see where this is going. And I finally did one more tweet, the final tweet in the trilogy. It's called Fake News. Fake news. With no reference to Bubba Wallace anywhere in here, but we have it in the video now, so there you go. Fake news. Anonymous sources are reporting that someone familiar with the situation can likely suggest a probable link that could appear to indicate the possible direction of facts. Those close to the matter point to what some might call weasel words over a period of time. Believe me. So let's start with warning shot and just sort of work forward. These are collections of tells for fake news. So if you're reading the newspaper or website, maybe, just to keep it simple, if you're on the right, you go Fox News or New York Post, and then on the left, you go Huffington Post and Washington Post, whatever it might be. But they use all these terms to tell all these stories, and we call it fake news. Why do we call it fake news? Well, let's take a look. Anonymous sources. Anonymous sources. Now you might think, okay, a source will not be able to be known. You can't have a source that's known, because if the source is known, they might lose their job, they might lose the position they have. It's better if they're hidden, they're secret, they can continue to provide the information, to provide the scoop, to provide the story to everybody else. So why would you, of course you want them to be anonymous, Jeff. They have to be anonymous. But of course, what happens is when you're trying to make a buck, when you're trying to persuade people, when you're trying to do whatever you're doing in the newspaper industry, the magazine industry, the website industry, anonymous sources can be abused. They can be a little bit abused. And what that would say is that you can't tell if that source really exists or if it doesn't. You just don't know. They're anonymous. And that is problematic because you keep on seeing these stories that just seem a little bit too over the top, a little bit too on the nose. And then they say, well, an anonymous source. So we don't know who it is. We can't confirm the name. We can't say that, Jerry and Meg said this. We can't say that Lamar said that. We can't point to somebody and say, well, there's your source. They never get released. Now, if they do, it's rare. So anonymous sources, familiar with the matter. So you'll see that a lot. Close to the case, familiar with the matter. And again, if they're anonymous, you can't really confirm who they are. You just have to put your faith. We have another tweet coming up a little later in the video about faith and reason. You got to put your faith in the newspaper that they are telling the truth and that the story is real. Provide testimony. Anonymous sources familiar with the matter provide testimony. Of course, testimony, again, is not necessarily fact. It's somebody's testimony, them telling you what they believe the truth to be, what their side of the story is. So it's not really necessarily the truth. It's just their version of the story, their version of the truth. That will confirm your suspicion. So there will be some confirmation bias in these stories. If they've already created this narrative for everybody to enjoy, of certain pieces are doing certain things on the board, there's always it's just like the rook always moves straight forward and the bishop always goes diagonal in the fake news world, the narrative media world. Your suspicions may be confirmed. In closed door meetings, we don't know what happened behind those doors, but of course they're closed, with unknown questions from high-ranking officials, high-ranking individuals close to the case. Unknown questions high-ranking individuals. Okay, so we really don't know much about what's going on. I obtain second-hand information that will change everything. Believe me. So, the second-hand information, I think this might have been referring to Lieutenant Colonel Vindman or somebody, one of these Trump impeachment-related stories. Talking about second-hand information. They don't even know firsthand what's going on, but they're saying it's it's the best information. It's second-hand. We don't have the actual source. It's coming from somebody else. It's one level detached. It's hilarious. And of course, believe me. And that's where the faith comes in. So the next one is called Weasel World, and I'm not going to expound upon every little bit the same way I just did, because a lot of it's again, these are all in a series. They're all kind of a version of the same tweet, so there's a couple differences. But you need to hear the verbiage. Weasel World. Anonymous sources usually report. So there it is again. Report. It's not the fact itself. It's not getting an eyewitness testimony. It's a report. Well, we saw it and we are reporting on it. That's the way it works. Now, again, I'm not saying this isn't a good system or it doesn't work. It's not. It's the best we got. Okay, it's the best we got. There's always talk about how reporting should be less biased, less commercial, that it should be more fact-based, truth-based, and try its best to present information, reality as reality is, and not through the filter of something. But that is so rare that I don't have much hope for things to change at this point. Anonymous sources usually report that someone familiar with the situation, again, someone familiar, is likely to suggest a probable link. So it could be. It's a lot of these weasel words. May, could, might. It's not like you're not really getting, especially when it comes to this sort of investigative stuff, where they're trying to pin something on a politician or something. You get a lot of this can, may, likely, it's possible, it's probable. It's all these weasel words. And I tried to fit as many of them into this tweet. Often, might. Tried to fit as many into these 3 tweets as I could possibly fathom. Character limit blues, folks. Character limit blues. So, likely to suggest a probable link they can believe, so they can believe, not know, but believe. Possibly indicates the direction of, okay, the direction, like a general direction, like how specific is this direction you're talking about? Is it over there or is it over there? Maybe it's over there. I don't know. It's the general direction of what could be considered largely, to add a little bit of shape to it, size to it, I should say. Let me go through it again. Anonymous sources usually report that someone familiar with the situation is likely to suggest a probable link that they can believe possibly indicates the direction of what could be largely considered to be what some might often call weasel words over a period of time. So, over a period of time. How long is that period of time? Is it a second, couple seconds? Is it a few minutes, hours, days, weeks? What is this period of time you speak of? You hear the president use this one a lot. Some might often call weasel words. So it's again the same idea, just sort of collecting all these little fake news-isms into a few tweets. And finally, we are going to hang them high with Fake news. Fake news. Anonymous sources are reporting that someone familiar with the situation can likely suggest a probable link that could appear to indicate the possible direction of facts. Those close to the matter these facts point to what some might call weasel words over a period of time. So yeah, now after watching this video, a lot of the people watching this channel, I understand you're already in the game, you know what's going on. But this channel is not just for those. I mean, it really is. A lot of it is for people that already follow politics and kind of understand the rules of the game a little bit. Going into an election year this year, Trump versus Biden, 2020. But if you didn't notice this before, I hope that this video finds you in a state of higher enlightenment. Thank you for watching. And we're going to move on to the next tweet. Pro tip: it's rude to tell someone you disagree with that they're an abortion. Try a softer term, like misconception. Tweets. So I have a couple tweets here that I'm going to read, and they kind of lead into each other. One of them is a named tweet. This is a named tweet. It is called Karma Clock. There's a phrase that goes something like this: an eye for an eye, and soon we're out of eyes. An eye for an eye, and each participant still has one eye. Actions have consequences. How moral is it for an action to have an equal and opposite reaction? Tick tock. The karma clock. So that's just a general sort of moral question. When people talk about eye for an eye, and talk about like sort of setting things right. Like if you took X from me, I get to take X from you. The same one. It's like a like for like. Some people have this view of morality and ethics in which they think it's more helpful to have this sort of eye for an eye. And I actually wanted to ask that question. And there wasn't too much, there was a couple of comments on that, but I'm really sharing Karma Clock, which is a standalone tweet for another tweet that I have here that I'm going to grab right now, that is about a similar topic, a little bit more heated, on the topic of reparations and what's going on right now with the racial clash in the United States. However big or small that it might actually be, I don't know what it is. But you can help me with that, with your comments below. Start the dialogue. Get it going. So here's the next tweet talking about the eye for the eye. Reparations for every cultural and or economic marginalization since the dawn of civilization would end the world. So questions remain. How far do you want to go back? How wide is your context? Do you believe in an eye thousands of years ago for an eye today? Give us numbers. So when you talk to people, notably on the left, we'll say it's notably on the left. It's more, they're the ones that have the modern religion more so of social justice, in which they sort of put people into groups, the identity politics religion. And they also talk about these things like privilege. We have white privilege, black privilege, all these different privileges. And of course they say, we're not racist. We're dividing people up into groups by their race. But we're not racist. We're acting on people based on their group, their race, but we're not racist. That's fine. We have this thing called altruistic racism. You can watch my video, Generating Racism, for more information on that. They have systemic racism. Systemic racism. So, I say here, reparations for every cultural and or economic marginalization since the dawn of civilization would end the world. So questions remain. So, yes, people act like we're supposed to retcon the past, or kind of go back and look at these transactions that happen. May they be wars or all this stuff that happened with literally millions of moving parts. People, millions of people were involved in the slave trade for the past 2,000 years. I'm not an expert. Seek subject matter experts and leave me some great information on slaves, white slaves, black slaves. Leave me comments on slavery down below. But we have all these things that happen. The way the Middle East handled it, slavery, and things where there was marginalization, where people were treated more like cattle than human beings. Happened all throughout civilization, still happens today in Africa. Slavery is not over. Slavery is still happening in places like Africa. So it's not like we haven't evolved all the way past that. But reparations for everything would end the world. Because so much has happened. If you go back and relitigate the past, try to rewrite history, try to 1619 project everything, just sort of like, well, we have a new frame for reality. We have a new frame for what happened. We have some new terms now. We learned about critical race theory, and now we're going to go and apply that filter from the future to the past. Not the relative future. We'll take it from 1989 and put it into 1919. And we'll do that and do this and do that. That's fine. But here's the thing. I get it in the past 100, 200 years. Because media in the past century or two has rapidly and massively evolved. So the messaging is much different. We know so much more about our environment, about our world. And I understand why people have thought that these are the worst times ever. The world has never been better. The world has never been better. But the fact of the matter is, you get so much information, you get so many images into your head. Give us your mind, like I said earlier in the video. The media wants you to give them your mind, and so you hand it over. We just hand it over. Here you go. Just keep on filtering all this negative imagery about slavery, and just remind me of the past 200 years again and again and again, so I can't get ahead. Nobody can get past it. Nobody can get past it. So I say here, how far do you want to go back? Are we going to go back just 100 years, 200? Or do you want to keep on going back further? Do you want to go back to 300 years, 500, 1,000, a whole millennium back? And sort of relitigate every reason why some family got where they were. Get down to the minutia, get down to the micro, and just try to reformat the societal push and the societal pull for everything that happened for thousands of years. How far do you want to go back to make sure that we undo those transactions? May they be flesh and blood, if people died, if people were sold, or just monetary. If it was just monetary transaction, did somebody get a bad deal? Did a town force this person out? How many people, Go through the millions and billions of connections between people and just relitigate, figure it out. Oh wait, we'll make it a lot easier. We'll make it a lot easier. How about we just put people into groups, right? We'll do it by race. I know it's an immutable characteristic, but we'll do it by race. We'll do it by sex. We'll do it by gender, which some would argue is not immutable or mutable. It's not mutable, depending on what's going on. You can probably infer what I'm trying to say there. But yeah, we can go ahead and just put people into groups. We'll label them, we'll divide them up, and we'll figure out, well, as a group, we can't do it on the individual. That's too much work. We can't do it on individual basis. That is too hard. We are too lazy to do that. We need simplification. So what we're going to do is move people into groups. If you're white, you're in that group. If you're Hispanic, you're in this group. If you're Asian, I know people don't like that term sometimes. Asian. Say if you're East Asian. Sure. You're like Jewish, we'll just put them all into groups. Black, we'll do all these different groups. And then we'll decide what culture, how we're going to reformat society based on our sort of subjective one angle on the past. Hell, we'll use some newer ideologies and linguistic frames to make it even easier. But we're going to go by group, and we'll give reparations to people, and we'll undo this and that. We don't need to get into the minutia. We don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details. We just need to make it right. And it has to feel good. We have to make it feel good, like we're doing something good. So let's divide people up into groups and start pitting them against each other. This is identity politics. How wide is your context? Again, we don't want it. If you're one of these people that's going around with the systemic this and the systemic that, they want their context is as wide as it needs to be to accomplish what they're doing. That's what it is. They're not doing this in a fair way. They're just they're coming up with these generalizations. Now I know they're trying to help people in many ways. I don't want to lose that in the conversation or the rant. But how wide is that context? You know, how far do you want to go back? And do you believe in an I thousands of years ago for an I today? You know, like, do you want to go back and say, well, maybe if the pharaohs of Egypt hadn't enslaved certain people to build the pyramids, if they weren't built by aliens, that is. What if we go back and check out the records and figure out, well, hey, this person was marginalized way 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 5,000 years, whenever it might be. We can go back as far as you want. Can we go back and say, you know, maybe we can cut them a check? Let's cut them a check. Where's the money come from? Who are they taking the money from? I don't know. I just want to help people, and I'm virtue signaling, and I don't know anything about math or science or history. I just want to help people, and that's it. And if I can't help people, then I don't want to vote. I don't want to do anything, because it's more important that I look and feel like I'm a good person than and things making any fucking sense. Okay. Give us numbers. Give us numbers. Don't just make broad assumptions. Put people into groups, generalize by group, and say, this has to be done, that has to be done, change has to happen, action has to take place, when you don't actually have full context. I know it feels good. I know it feels good. I like to feel good too. But you also have to think a little bit. You gotta think. Realize that it's a lot more complex. There's a lot more precedent. There's precedent. I know you want to heal the wound. You'll throw whatever you can at this thing to fix it. I respect that. I have to say, the reparation people, you know, it opens a can of worms. It opens a can of worms that I don't know where it ends. You know, if someone gets reparations for something in the 20th, I think we can probably go back to the 20th century. But again, I want to help people as much as anybody, but I do get sort of tired, a little bit exhausted and winded when people, they put their heart before their head. You know what I mean? They put their heart before their head. They want to help so badly that they're willing to set aside the consequences of these major actions to do so. So I don't want to come off as a bastard or anything about this, but it does frustrate me sometimes because I know that their heart's in the right place. Like, I know it. But I think it's better. I have a video out, Irreparable Reparations, featuring Democrats. Irreparable Reparations on BitChute and YouTube, where I talk about how, yeah, it would be nice to cut a check for some people that have been historically marginalized if we're going to break people up into groups. Okay, the idea is good, but the method, I think, is not right. I think we should be focusing on, are you ready? Here's the word you're going to hear a lot about this topic: education, opportunity. We need to make it so that people, we can't fix the past. The past happened. The past is gone. We can learn from the past. We can't fix it. It's gone. It's history. What we can do, what we can fix, is the future. And that involves setting things up that allow people that don't have the advantages, that don't have the privileges of other people. Doesn't matter who they are. This is completely anybody. No skin tone, no sex or gender, no religion, color, or creed. Hobbies, interests, professions, degrees, credentials. Doesn't matter who you are, what your label is. I consider myself an artist. Doesn't matter who you are. I think everybody deserves access to education and opportunity, equal opportunity. And if some people have a natural disadvantage that is going to hold them down forever, yeah, give them a leg up. But, you know, cutting them a check, going back and trying to relitigate the past, it's backwards thinking to me. It's backwards thinking, so figured I'd share that. Okay. 2 more tweets for you today. Yummy water. Well, we'll do 3 more tweets. And I'll start with the third degree. This is a named tweet. It's called The Third Degree. The third degree. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. My college degree might end up worthless if you don't. Seek subject matter experts. And by that, I mean seek me. Hire me. No. Don't add another skill to your stack. No learning on the job. No learning on the job. No internet, for the love of God. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. The third degree. So I just gave you the third degree. Stay in your lane. My college degree might end up worthless if you don't. So, people go to college. It's a beautiful thing. They go to school. And then they go online and they put their credentials in their Twitter profile. Jeff Tidwell, PhD. And if you don't stay in your lane, if you don't try, stay in your lane is telling you not to diversify in your career or diversify your skills. It's saying you really shouldn't be commenting on this topic because you're not a subject matter expert. You're not a SME, as it were. You don't know what you're talking about. I do. I went to school for, in my case, broadcast journalism. So you really, I think, you should stay in your lane, know what you do best and stick to it, okay? Know what you do best and stick to it. Right? That's what you hear sometimes. My college degree, their college degrees might end up worthless if you don't. Because, the more skills you add on, if you become this Renaissance man or woman, Renaissance woman, for all his different skills, you end up being a man or a woman of the people, a jack of all trades, maybe a master of none, maybe a master of one, maybe a master of some. But you will hear that. People will try to make you stay in your lane so they can monopolize that area. Seek subject matter experts, and by that I mean seek me, hire me. So again, you go to school. I support college and university. Like I'm okay with it. I know that there's a lot of indoctrination. There's a lot of the stuff that we hear about online. Not so much from the left side of politics, but more from the right. More independent-minded people are like, that you're going to school and you're getting these Marxist education, whatever it might be. They say that. And there's some merit to that. And I do think that some people are really focused on inspiring you, compelling you to hire them, to sort of like tamp down people that are like Jeff Tidwell, for example, that don't have I have my broadcast journalism certification, but I don't have any other credentials. So for me, it's sort of like if I start to talk about a topic that I'm not an expert in, I might be going into pop psychology or something. I like to add the word pop before to sort of give you the idea, okay, like the man generally knows what he's talking about, but he's not a SME necessarily. And that's why I say seek subject matter experts. But people have an incentive to be hired, to create an environment where they're easier to hire. So you're going to see that. We live in a capitalistic, Darwinistic world in many ways. So this is kind of somebody talking and saying these things. And the next thing they say is, no, don't add another skill to your stack. Don't add another skill to your stack. No learning on the job. No hands-on learning. No internet. My college degree is on the verge of being worthless because all of you people, you keep on talking about this subject, you keep on giving all these bits of advice, you're getting all these likes and retweets, you're doing videos and all this stuff, and you don't even have a degree, and I spent $50,000 or $100,000, I spent so much money I can't even count it to get these skills, and that you're learning them online. Oh my God, I'm at a freaking disadvantage because I'm a millennial, that my parents and my teachers and my peers and my family and everybody said, I have to get a degree. And now people are just learning online, adding skills to their stack, learning on the job, hands-on. Why couldn't you just stay in your lane? Stay in your lane. I have my lane. Let me put my art degree to good use. Whatever it might be. Let me put my degree to good use. I see that a little bit. I see that a little bit. They'll give you the 3rd degree. And it can be funny because, we have professions where you really need to know your stuff. Like, I talk to some people that are engineers, for example. Programmers and engineers and people that deal with the nuts and bolts of scientific things. You need to know your stuff. Like, you need to be trained. You need to have an apprenticeship to become an electrician. You need to have a background. You need to have a little bit of you need to build it up. You need to learn. So they say don't add another skill to your stack. A skill stack is basically, you learn a ton of different skills, like public presentation, and then like math and this and that and this and this and this. You keep adding all these different little things you can do. I know how to do this. I know how to present this and do that and that. I know how to sell things here, sell things there, and sell things up and down, left and right. I'm got a big skill stack. I know marketing, advertising. The internet is the educational source of the future. It is the school of the future. Now you need to know, like I said, you need to have those hard science skills. You've got to study. You probably have to go to college. Or take some night courses, or take some courses on the internet. But there are people, what I was trying to get to, this is tangential, what I was trying to get back to is that the whole stay in your lane thing, you don't necessarily need to have on-the-ground knowledge on, in the microprocessor knowledge, in, nut and bolt knowledge to talk about a topic in a general manner. The macro can be discussed without knowing every bit of micro. Micro helps, obviously. The more you know, the better. I say more information is better. But the macro, there are lots of generalities you can make. And then you talk to a subject matter expert and they kind of set you straight a little bit and say, well, you're 80% right. They're Pareto's principle. You're 80% right. But there's a little bit of nuance you're missing that I think if you re-added that nuance, you'd be much better off. And here it is. Here it is, my friend. Here's your nuance. Here's your nuance, my friend. They'll do that, and it's very helpful. But some people might be protective of their college degrees. And I know it's a small group of people, and maybe I'm punching down, maybe I'm punching up. I don't know. You can tell me in the comments section below. So, 2 more tweets for you today. And this time, I'm not lying. So the first one here is just a normal tweet. To my 1-hour crowd, thank you very much. We don't have the ability to observe another reality where things we don't like about our reality happen differently. We can't see the costs nor the benefits, the relatively rational decisions nor the irrational. We can only observe the past, which does not dictate the future. So this kind of touches a little bit about on some of the things we've been talking about going back, hindsight. The hindsight prophets, they go back and say, well, hey, could have been different. Things could have been different? Things could always be different. But we don't have a view of an alternate dimension where you can actually compare and contrast to this one. There is no alternate reality to say, well, if this one decision was made differently, how would that sort of butterfly? What are the downstream effects of that major change? We don't have that ability to observe another reality. We can't see, we can take one component, one aspect of something that happened in the past or is happening even right now and say, well, if we remove this, take it out and put something else in its place. Okay, here we go. We got that in there. The amount of impact that has isn't just, take one out, put one in. There's a whole world of changes that happened there. And how people feel about it, how people were emotional about it, how people interacted with it, the actions they took. Did they feel positivity? Did they feel more negative? Were they essentially neutral? All that change wouldn't matter. We can't tell. We can't see alternate realities. We can only kind of go, well, here's this thing called perfection. I'm going to compare what happened in reality to perfection, or doing it completely, perfectly right. And then, if you're on political Twitter, especially, you might find that they say, well, your political person here, this political person here, is, that's how my guy would have done it. Your guy, he's full of shit. You're full of shit. They might use that and say, have this ideal in their head of like, well, if things had just gone my way, if we had had President Trump in 2012, my father actually said back in 2012, why doesn't Donald Trump run for president? He actually said that. And I kind of get it because Mitt Romney is a cuck. But, imagine if people were like, well, maybe things would be better if we had Trump back in 2012. And I say, that completely changes so many variables, that jumbles the board, shakes the box with so many variables, that there's no way you can tell the way things would be after 10 years with that dramatic of a difference, Just for one example, but they'll use that. They'll say, things weren't perfect. Things didn't happen perfectly. And I think if we just did change this one thing, everything would be perfect. I'm like, no. The downstream effects. We can't see the costs, nor the benefits, the relatively rational decisions, nor the irrational. We can only observe the past, which does not dictate the future. The past does not dictate the future. Learn from the past. Never forget the past, but don't live in the past. The future is not set, and we can only observe the past. We can't. It's not deterministic. We can't say, what happened before is going to happen again. There are some things that are relatively, that's why I apply casual fatalism. Some things are, the patterns are pretty observable, pretty noticeable. You understand. You know that the sun's going to rise. Not forever. There's this thing called the heat death of the universe. One day, the entire universe is going to die. Everything dies. Everything dies. It happens. But for human beings that aren't living billions of years from now, the sun rises every day. The moon, well, it appears at night. Sometimes a little bit during the day, but it appears at night. There are certain things that are predictable. So you can say that something is going to happen, but in terms of, especially human events, where humans control the outcome of things, of course, the future isn't set. We've created look around you. This wasn't here 5,000 years ago. We created this thing. Now we have the internet. We have done so much. And so I say, don't forget the past. Forgive, but never forget. But, keep your eye on the future. And remember that we cannot see the other reality where the idea that we had, that I had, happened. It just doesn't happen that way. We can imagine it. And our imaginations are vast, almost infinite. No failure of imagination here. But you're not going to see, you can't see the other reality where something different happened. It's just a pipe dream. Maybe if your weed's really good, maybe if you took the right edible, you might be able to see that other reality. Get on ayahuasca. Yes, don't take any drug advice from a YouTuber. In fact, don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs, kids. But onward to our last tweet. I'll never know what the alternate reality is where I ended the video here, but we're going to start our final tweet for the day. This is called Pearls Before Swine. Pearls Before Swine. And I want to say right up front, the title is a little controversial because you have the word swine in there, but you need to sort of see why I went with this frame. Pearls before swine. Reason before faith. Individuals before groups. Free will before determinism. Nations before globes. Nations before globes. Liberty before authority. Capitalism before socialism. Character before identity. Accolades before criticisms. Openness before isolation. Possibility before beliefs. Beginnings before endgame. Contrast before relief. So this is a named tweet, and this is one of the less straightforward ones where it's actually really helpful that I break these sort of cryptic or too broad tweets down for you in these videos. It's fun for me, and I hope it's fun for you. Thank you for watching. Pearls before swine. So this this is very biased. This channel is very biased. I'm very biased, but this tweet's very biased and opinionated, and I'll explain what it means. One by one. Reason before faith. So in all cases here, in all cases in this tweet, I'm not saying get rid of the second thing. You have reason before faith. I'm not saying get rid of faith. We need faith. We absolutely need faith. But I think we should put reason before faith, especially when we're making an important decision. We should make sure that we have the science down. We have those nuts and bolts that I talked about earlier. We have the actual logic figured out. Instead of just jumping to, well, I believe it'll work. I believe this machine will work. Yes, it's out of gas, but I believe, I didn't know. I just believe. I didn't reason it out. I didn't check. I didn't do my research and check the gas tank. I just believe it works. It's going to work. Don't need to check it. No reason. And all of a sudden you come to find it's out of gas. There's nothing in the tank. If you hadn't put faith that there was before reason, checking, you would have been happier. You would have gotten what you wanted. A working lawnmower. So I think reason before faith. If you want to have faith, if you want to, get into a pattern of a little confirmation bias, sort of getting used to something, and then sort of letting down your guard on reason, that's great, But I think we should at least be able to reason first and then get to this softer faith in something later. Individuals before groups. So this channel, of course, preaches, and because I kind of look like Jesus Christ, is a little fun there. But we preach the white Jesus, of course. We preach individuality and individual agency. We don't try to go into third-person effect. We don't talk about too much of, we say that, everyone is being brainwashed every minute of every day by themselves and others. But we talk individuals before groups. We talk about individual before group. Because a lot of this is really just counter-messaging, counter-programming for the modern religion of social justice. All the moral virtue and universal truth you can get, the equity, the equality, I try to stay away from it. I believe in social justice, lowercase social justice. When you add that capital S, capital J, and I say disciple, but some people add a W for social justice warrior. Some of these people, I'm agnostic. I'll put it that way. I'm agnostic on the modern religion of social justice. Some of these people put you into a label. It's fun. I'm doing it right now. It's fun. But it's a label they accept. Like, I accept that, for example, let's see. I accept that I'm a gamer. I'm in a group called Gamers. I love that label. That's great. That's sort of, a hobby. It's a pastime. It can be an occupation even, right? And it's fine to say, look, I'm white. Jeff Tidwell is white. I'm 25% Syrian Lebanese. A lot of Polish, a lot of Irish in here. I'm white, right? You can say that. I'm male. I'm definitely male. So you can put me in that group. I'm eligible to go into the men's room in South Carolina. Great. You can do all that. I can say that I'm agnostic. I don't believe in God, necessarily. Sorry. Put me in a group. Go ahead. But when you start to put people into groups and then move them around, culturally engineer society using these group characteristics and just saying, you're not allowed to have as much success as you'd like. You're not allowed to succeed. You're not allowed to have opportunity, or you are, or either way, because of X, Y, and Z. You're not allowed to say this or do this because of your immutable characteristics. That's not the kind of country we live in. But I focus on individual. I think everybody has something to offer. Energy survives all outcomes, as I say in my tweet and video, Based 10. Check it out on the channel. But I think that we've gotten away from this a little bit. People are so concerned with symbolism and labeling things and telling you what to do, where to go, and how to be based on, the color of your skin, what your belief system is, what your ideology is. People are being kicked off of social media for the wrong political opinions, and I don't like it. I don't like this idea of putting people on a list, into this group, and then using that list to demonize and to say that list is bad. Those people are bad. Those people are good. And then going around society and just, forming society based on these postmodern preconceptions of what's going on. I don't find that very appealing. I'm sorry. I just don't. So I counter-program. Against that. And you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So yes, I'm going to do, hypocrisy is a thing. But you have to be able to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And yeah, I'm going to have to break a couple eggs here. Pointing out those who would cast me or anybody as a group instead of a person. I remember, right after Donald Trump won, and I voted for Jill Stein. I voted for the Green Party candidate. Right after Donald Trump won, people were triggered. They were emotionally damaged. They were hurting. They didn't know what was going to happen. They were surprised. They were shocked. They were triggered. And people I had known for 10 years, somebody I knew for 30 years, but notably both of them and others, many people, came up to me and pointed to me and said, you know, of course you're not triggered. Of course you're not scared. I was talking to like white people, by the way. Of course you're not scared. You're a white male. You're privileged. You're privileged. And I'm like, haven't you known me for 10, 20, 30 years? And you're calling me I voted for Jill Stein in a blue state where Hillary Clinton totally won. 63% of the vote. I knew that would happen. But they're not looking at me in my... They're so into this social justice, modern religion. They're disciples that want to proselytize and bring me in and make me hate, you know, certain groups that need to be taken down a notch. Depending on the country you're in, it doesn't really export very well. A lot of countries it doesn't make sense to have social justice. Mostly just multicultural countries. Actually, that brings me to my pitch for Neat Wars. I was their final guest, but the Neat Wars podcast on D Live, check it out. I was their final guest. They actually decided to break it up right after, but we talked about this among other topics. It's actually a really good podcast. They stopped it for another reason. But we talked a little bit about how multiculturalism and how people start to look at you by the group instead of the individual, and when they're trying to make it all work, trying to make multiculturalism all work. So there's that. I've talked a lot about that on this channel. You can check out my other videos on groupthink and group mentality and collectivism versus individualism. You know, and again, I advocate for individualism, but it's not perfect either. I mean, individualism can be, in its own way, a form of religion in itself. Okay, when you look at the cult of personalities that form and things. So believe me, I understand that it's. No, I always think it's not perfect. It's between. So then we have free will before determinism. So determinism is closer to this thing I call rational free will, which means that some things are determined, like life just continues on as long as it can until it can't. There are some things in this world, gravity, the way the physical world works on a micro and a macro level, quantum physics. There are things that are determined, but then there's also this thing called free will. I believe in irrational free will, which actually does have some, if you think about it in a certain frame, quantum implications. This sort of like, well, you have a 0 or a 1 that can be either one or the other. Schrodinger's cat, until you check if it's a 0 or a 1, it could be a 0 or it could be a 1. And to me, that shows a little bit of uncertainty that I think gets away from the deterministic philosophy about how reality operates. So I say free will before determinism. I say, people are irrational beings. We're emotional beings that, of course, make choices that don't seem to, they're not always predictable. Sometimes they don't make any sense. Sometimes they're just stupid. People, some of us, are just stupid. And we make bad decisions. But, free will, again, people will ask all these questions. And free will is I'm not going to come down hard on free will because I think it's something that I'm still studying and a very interesting topic. I have a couple tweets out about it. One of the videos is called Free Willy. Check it out on BitChute and YouTube. But I say free will before determinism because I don't like people getting locked in. I don't like people getting locked in to this idea that they can't change reality, that they can't change their situation. I like to think that things aren't determined. You can change your fate and enjoy your life more. You can make your experience on this earth better. When people talk about determinism, it feels like Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of locks people into this idea that there's no such thing as real free will. I think the truth lies between those two. I think that, you know, we can do things for all kinds of reasons. And people will say, well, you still, you don't really have free will. All of your programming. Sam Harris will tell you something in this ballpark, and I really like Sam a lot on this topic. Even though I don't fully agree with him, I think he's like on the right path for rational free will, and we need to stick with the rational again. Reason before faith earlier in the tweet. But you say like, oh, you might think that your actions are free will, but in reality, you're actually operating off of preconceptions, and you're operating off of behaviors that were genetically gifted to you from your parents, and so on and so forth. Like everything from the start of the Big Bang all the way to now, everything that happens, you think you have control. You might have control over what you call micro decisions. Do we want to take a left or a right here? What's faster? What do we want to try first? Pearls or swine? Pearls before swine. In this context. But some people will say ultimately you think you have control, but really it's like all hard coded what's going to happen. And I say I like to get away from that. I like to think people can change who they are, not in a postmodern way. Like I support you to whatever you want to do. Your body is your business. Okay, you can do whatever you want. That's none of my business, and I'll do whatever I want. It's none of your business. But the determinism thing, it's a thing. It exists. It's real. But free will first. I like to think free will first. Nations before globes, very simple. Again, this is about individuals versus groups. Same thing. Nations before globes. So you should think of your country first. This is a very nationalistic perspective. I happen to be a nationalist. I believe that every country, every group of people should focus on them first before others. So that's that in a nutshell. I believe America first for Americans. I believe Canada first for Canadians. I believe China first for the Chinese. I think that's healthy, and I think that we can all work together around the world, around the globe, for that. So that's that. I don't want to go too much further into that. It's the same idea as individuals over groups, that you want to focus on what individual nations need and are doing, and not focus on the big picture of all these people, but actually just stick down to make sure your nation's happy and then worry about the rest. And of course, there's a push and pull. I mean, you have to have some globalism to be part of the world economy. Nothing I say here, by the way, I'll say later, but nothing I say here should be viewed with binary thinking. Nothing I say should be looked at in absolutes, unless I indicate it should be. Definitely ask the question. But the truth lies between, you want to have some nationalism, some globalism, and that's the healthiest. There's a healthy mixed model there. Very healthy mixed model. Liberty before authority. We need both. We need authority. We need the police. In my mind, it really helps for us to have a government now that we have the world the way it is. The United States is great. We have 50 states. We have other territories. But we need to have authority figures. There's positive authority. But I say liberty first. I say that, we're free. We should be free beings, free, conscious, sentient beings on this earth. So I do believe in libertarianism over authoritarianism. I don't think people should be overly controlled, especially in their personal interactions at home and so forth, like that. I don't think there should be people telling me what I can and can't say. They shouldn't be actually really telling me that I have to wear a mask because of COVID-19. they shouldn't do that because it's not constitutional. It's a guideline, folks. It's a guideline. I know we have Dick Jesus Christ Cheney. I got it. Everyone's telling you wear a mask. I've talked to some people in Massachusetts about this. I've seen some posts on Facebook. Let me paraphrase one of the posts I have about masks from my left-leaning friends in Massachusetts. Fuck you! Wear your fucking mask, you fucking fuck! What the fuck? You're so fucking stupid. What the fuck is wrong with you, you fucking idiot? Wear your fucking mask. It's not all about you. It's not all about you. Oh my fucking God, you're endangering grandma. You're endangering grandma. Yeah, it's pretty tiring, isn't it? So, authority is good, and obviously we want to have safety. We want to slow the spread. We're never going to stop it. We want to slow it, but you'll see that. This idea that everyone has to conform to certain things. It's a creeping authoritarianism. It's not like we don't have any right now. We have tons of it. But the more you add on and the more people just accept the control, I say no. Liberty first. Liberty before authority. Put it through that filter. Capitalism before socialism. Won't get long-winded on this, but I'll say that you need to have a strong capitalistic base to do those soft socialism things, like social programs and all this other stuff. And obviously socialism is a persuasion word. There's a lot going on with socialism, lobbying and all the way that, commercial entities and corporations interact with the government, of course, involves a bit of socialism as well. But I say capitalism first because it's merit-based. It's not this big group thing again. You see a pattern here, not so many groups over individuals. Socialism is groups over individuals. The greater good is to make sure that all of society is happy at the expense of the individual that loses their sovereignty as a commercial entity because they can't work the same way they did before in a fully socialist or communistic system. This next one is a little bit more interesting. It's character before identity. So again, we should be judged by the content of our character, not our immutable characteristics, our identity. I should be judged for, what Jeff Tidwell does. I shouldn't be judged for what, agnostic white male that happens to like Radiohead does. You know what I mean? Straight white male. No, Jeff Tidwell. My name is Jeff Tidwell. Nice to meet you. That's the way I prefer. Character, if you do bad, you get a slap in the wrist. You do good, you get a thumbs up. Character. Not judged by your mutable or immutable characteristics. Well, mutable, there are certain things you could do. If you wear a fuck you hat, well, people might judge you. They might not like it. They might not like the aggression. Accolades before criticisms. I have a video. Accolades before criticisms. It's a thought experiment. Available on YouTube. And that basically says, give the good news first. Give the accolades first. And then give the nitpicks and the criticisms and the negatives later. Instead of going, the first thing I want to say is that this sucked. This thing you're doing is suck. It is suck. And then kind of go, there's a little bit of good. Start with the good, go to the negative later. I think that's, most people agree, most things in life are a mixed bag. Most things in life are a mixed bag. You want to give the accolade first and then say, well, hold on. This, and this. Here's some constructive criticism. Here's some feedback. I think that would be better for society. Putting our pearls before swine. 4 more for you. So openness before isolation. Again, isolation's great. Openness is great. I think we should strive to be more open. We should try to be more accepting. We should try to be more positive. Not exclusive, but inclusive. We should be allowing as much as we can within reason. This is very generally speaking. Openness to experience, for example. Jordan Peterson talks about openness to experience. Isolation is great for engineers, scientists, and people that are doing things in a very intricate way, and they need to be able to isolate and analyze things, take them apart into their component features, one at a time. But being isolated in this context here versus openness and isolation, is that, frankly, when you close off, when you look inward only as a human being, if we look only inward, eventually we just wither up. We're not open. We're not accepting new information. We're just going off of isolation. It works for some. Hermits love it. Hermits love isolation. I don't judge hermits. I don't judge often at all. But openness, I think, is better. Not being echo chambered, for example. I say an echo chamber is great as a vacation home, but you wouldn't want to live there. It's very comfortable to live in a vacation home, but you wouldn't want to live there. So I try to not isolate myself. Sometimes it's easier not to see conflicting opinions that you've already heard 500 million times. So you might isolate then, but initially, at first, at least, and if not continuously forever, you do want to remain open to new perspectives and intellectual and non-intellectual dialogue alike. Possibility before beliefs. So, again, it goes along with openness. Believing in possibility. Things are possible. Things that you didn't believe were possible before are possible. Some of them. Not all. Again, don't view this in absolutes. But you want to have the openness to experience that things are possible, not just your beliefs and, my belief is all that matters. God said it. If it's not in the Bible, I don't believe it. If it's not in the Bible, I don't believe it. We don't want that. There are some places in which I believe that an orthodoxy like that can be helpful. Not harmful, but helpful. Moral, even. But I like to, for my purposes, expand the possibilities, expand what's possible, and not just go with our beliefs about what can be, but actually expand. Don't isolate, but expand into this larger universe where anything's possible. Now, that can, of course, I'm a postmodern thinker. I do critique postmodernism sometimes, but I am a postmodern thinker. I believe President Trump is the postmodern president. So it's a matter of balance. Beginnings before endgame. So again, possibility. Not just closing off and saying we live in a deterministic world. It's all going downhill. The only thing that's inevitable is death. I mean, a lot of these things may be true. But I like to make sure that, we're thinking about new beginnings versus just the end all the time. It's like positive. Think positive. Think of birth. Don't think, life is a cycle of life and death. It's not very eloquent. But our reality, it's like everything that's living dies and then fertilizes something to be born again. Beginnings. Endgame, of course, is kind of a reference to, you could snap your fingers and half the universe disappears. You want to have the openness of a beginning and not the isolation, the closing, the finality of an endgame. So it's not that you want one or the other, but you want to put beginnings first. Beginnings before Endgame. And finally, contrast before relief. And that's the last line of the tweet, and it says, contrast before relief. And it was spelled differently, so there's a contrast there. Huh? Get it? And I think we need contrast in our lives for them to be interesting. If all the patterns are the same all the time, we don't have anything that pops out at us anymore. There's no contrast. It's all boring. It's like there's almost no reason to go on. If you're just, seeing the same thing every day, contrast before relief. If you get some contrast, it comes right before your relief. You're like, oh, life is interesting again. Life is beautiful. But that's pearls before swine. And that was our last tweet for today. Thank you very much for making it this far into the video. I really appreciate it. I had a good time today talking about some tweets here. So, as always, I can be found on Twitter at RealJeffTidwell. I'm also on Gab, Minds, Parler, Telegram, and Instagram. If you're not watching this video on YouTube, you're watching it on BitChute. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, please do give it an upvote. If you didn't enjoy it, give it a downvote. It really helps me with the algorithm. And of course, tap the little bell below for notifications if you want to catch these as soon as they drop. And of course, as I always say, everything I said today might be wrong. Or, everything I said today might be right. Perhaps some of it was right and some of it was wrong. I think that's probably a little bit closer to the truth. So, thank you again for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time, and I hope you have a great weekend.